All right, here we go, team, going live.
Awesome. It is coming up on 10:30 here. We will give everybody a second to connect their audio to join us in YouTube land as well. We will start in 20 seconds. Do not adjust your audio. Do not adjust your video. We are controlling them because it's Friday, and that means it's YouTube time. That's what that means. All right, Cindy, I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Welcome one and all to the next Ask Me Anything session with a Pragmatic Institute instructor. We are so glad to have you here. If you're joining us personally in Zoom, a very special welcome to you. We love that. We love to see your faces. Oh, hello. Walter's got his camera on. We love that. Hello, Walter. Yes, we're real human beings, not robots. It is, of course, an Ask Me Anything style session. So we have some pre-submitted questions, but if you have questions and would like to interject them, do so at any time. You can either just unmute and ask us. You can post them to me in the chat and I'll toss them over to our instructor. Either way, whatever you're comfortable with, that's what we'll do. Let me give a shout out up at the top here to the Pragmatic alumni community, the PAC that we are so proud of, the award-winning online community for Pragmatic Institute. This is the place you want to be for resources, for contacts, for tools. If you are in the product industry, this is one of the best resources you're going to be able to find, and we are proud to offer it as a complimentary lifetime subscription to anyone who takes or has taken a public online product class. If you take our classes, you get a membership to the PAC and you can have it forever. Do that. Don't miss out on that. All right. With that stuff out of the way, at the top, we get to welcome today's Pragmatic instructor, the incomparable, indefatigable Cindy Cruzado. I've got my thesaurus on the back shelf here. That's where I was practicing my 3 penny words. How was that?
That was pretty good. You say that to all the girls.
That is the first time I've ever told a girl she was indefatigable. You can even ask my wife. She will confirm I've never called her that. Cindy, how are you today? I hear you're functioning on what, 3 hours of sleep?
Yeah. No, I'm an instructor. I go where I need to go, and was up at 3 teaching this morning. Yeah, folks in Central Europe. I had a blast of a class today. So, coffee is my friend this afternoon here. I'm all good.
We'll do our best to only ask you intriguing questions to help you keep your eyes open.
Love it. And I want to welcome everybody who is here with us live. That is always fun. Great to see you.
Love it. Well, I'm going to kick us off then with a question that was pre-submitted, but don't be shy, folks. If you want to put one in the chat or speak up out loud, do it. I'll start off with this question from Rory. Cindy, Rory asks, we are looking to create a CAB, that's Customer Advisory Board.
Yeah.
For the very first time. How should we go about building this? And are there any must-haves when it comes to who should be included in a CAB? Cindy?
Well, great question, right? Well, I think there are some must-haves these days. First thing that comes to mind here is, and I've done this a couple of times in companies that I have been in, is that it needs to be very structured. This is not a casual meetup. It is a privilege to be a part of a CAB, not only from the company's perspective, but the way you really get good quality conversations is that people want to be there and you carve out time. So have a defined number of seats, invite people into those seats, have those seats be rotating. I often get asked how many seats. I think every customer advisory board I've done has been about 20 seats. You get more than that, and it's just more management of this. Sometimes it's just one product manager managing it, which is a lot of work. But it's also good to have subgroups of those seats by cohort. I think almost everybody is maybe looking at grouping companies by industry, by solution segment, by demographic, maybe size, seats or licenses, something like that. Because then when you do work groups, which you would plan over the term of the customer advisory board, you can pull like customer profiles or personas together and get them working collectively on different things. Those seats have to have a term. So 18 months was what we did at the last company I did this with, which seemed long, but we got a lot of work done. We did surveys with them. We did meetups. They had a look at prototypes, gave us feedback, as well as helped us with new opportunities. So it's a very broad range of activities you can get them involved in. So that is generally the structure, but the must-have for me is making it clear the objectives and what's in it for them. Usually get a lot of excitement when people come into a term, but it can wane over the course of that term. So, what do they get out of actually contributing their ideas? Do they get assistance to become more of a personal brand in a community? Do you help amplify their personal profile or their company profile by giving them references and case studies and things like that, and doing that kind of video or collateral? Do you give them speaking spots in events that you're doing? I think those go a long way. As well as just constantly thanking them for their time and giving them shout outs inside the community. But you got to figure out what's in it for them and continuously remind them of that. So those are my thoughts on CAB.
As time goes on and more people catch on to the value of a CAB panel, do you think there will be more competition and more expectations from the participants for bigger kickback?
If not managed, yes,
yeah.
We could get out of line in expectations. And I think you keep it a smaller number of seats. You have objectives and you're able to more manage them one-on-one if somebody goes sideways like that or has broader expectations. But this is just one of many places we get ideas from our markets, but it can be a good one.
Excellent. And I have to insert an apology here because I forgot my favorite part of the AMA series is that we're going to give away a free lunch to the best live questions. So you folks who have joined us here in Zoom, the best live question, we'll send you a gift card for a free lunch, $20 to Grubhub, wherever you want. So keep that in mind. Toss those questions over there. And then at the end, Cindy, at her complete discretion, will choose her favorite question from the session and we'll send you free lunch. How about that?
All right, it's on.
Good fun. Cindy, I'm gonna jump over to this question from Thomas. Thomas asked, I would love to learn more about how to validate and test assumptions and theories earlier so we can pivot more effectively. Any suggestions? How do you do that earlier?
Well, I think there's two parts to this question for me. Being an instructor, I have to kind of remind everybody. And Thomas, if you're watching here, being early for a market-driven product leader means that we're in the market continuously. And so when we start to hear a pattern, it shouldn't be something that we're catching up on. It should be something that is emerging and we're starting to hear it and we're continuously getting out there and getting more of these Nahito visits. So I think early is helped tremendously by how much time we and our colleagues perhaps helping us spend time in the market. If we're doing that, we're more likely to catch things early. But when we do identify a pattern, whenever it happens, right? Look at data internally to help validate that. Is there something, and I'll kind of highlight two key areas that I would go to first as appropriate for the kind of idea that it is. Have you noticed a problem with customers? Is there validation with adoption data, usage data, patterns, login preferences, community comments that you could mine through sentiment analysis? Are there things like that directionally can help you quantify how pervasive a problem might be? That's one area, usually right under our ability to do that pretty quickly. If you have data scientists within your organization, ask them to help. Perhaps there is more access to information that you might not find readily available, but they have the tools to help you mine that or get you some contacts. They can usually do that pretty quickly, retrospectively. And when we think about the other type of data, it would be the marketing analytics that we're doing. Is there something, maybe some gated content? Maybe the content itself is about something that is related to a pattern of problems that you're noticing. Could you look at how many downloads of that gated content? Are there other things related to that content? Could you mine the profiles of the people that are downloading it and get some insight into those buyers or influencers? Look at what we have. And, in class, we talk about doing experiments, A/B testing, setting up specific, tests that could help us with a customized validation scenario. And of course, a direct survey to the part of the market where we're seeing the pattern is a fantastic way to validate as well. I think those are some of our key ideas there.
Beautiful. Hope that helps, Thomas. If you're watching out there, it looks like Walter, who's with us in the Zoom, is making an early bid for the best question. And we've got one in the chat here. Walter, I'm going to go ahead and read it in case anyone's listening on YouTube and can't see the chat. And then I'll invite you to unmute and ask any clarifying questions of Cindy directly. Here you go, Cindy. Are there other considerations to implementing the framework in an organization besides gap analysis? How does one change is this a separate question or a continuation of the question, Walter?
It's separate.
A separate one. Let's let Cindy do that first one, and then we'll come back to your second one. How about that?
Sure. Walter, nice to meet you. So a definite yes to your question. And let me tell you what my ideas are on that. When you're doing the gap analysis, this is the first time you do it, it's kind of baselining, what activities are important, who's doing them, things like that. And it should be a continuous progress towards improving, right? Setting an action plan and then moving towards getting better at those, coming back and picking another 3 or 5 activities. So there's that. But I think along with that is driving collaboration between groups to collaborate on getting an activity done. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. When I think about in the market category, the win-loss activity, the gap analysis will help us identify who's that role that is accountable for doing something with the data through gap analysis, kind of updating the roadmap as an example. But to get there, it takes a village. And so, get down to a level of definition about the process, the people, who's writing the questions, who's identifying who to interview, who's conducting the interviews. Is there a buddy going with them to help take notes? Who's managing and getting buy-in around stakeholders to get permission to do that? I think there's different tools. A RACI framework is a way of kind of working through that. But I think that goes hand in hand with getting a little more clarity. Now, along with that, a lot of the activities that we do in the framework on the left-hand side are kind of tapping into the markets, existing customers. And I think that often companies will rally around the friendly customers, the ones we know about, the people that we could probably quickly get on a Zoom call. And so it's often helpful to have a traffic cop identified in the organization that can help manage some of that activity, making sure that not everybody's going to the same accounts. Not everybody's bugging the same salespeople in the same territory. And we also could have that role help point out how we could be more diversified, right? Let's not just talk to customers, let's get out into other parts of the market. And I see a lot of pragmatic customers that are identifying somebody within the product team or the product marketing team to kind of play that facilitation role. And it helps us roll out some of the actions that we would do around the gap analysis.
So you could have a series of products, services, whatever it is that you offer to your customer base. Is there anything that you do that's organizing? I mean, I can see how gap analysis will frame the next steps for your product or your specific service. But if you have a group of all of them, is there a gap analysis? And this leads a little bit to my next question, maybe the organization, right? Because there's nothing in the gap analysis about the overall environment of that products or systems.
Well, my mind goes to two places. Probably as I think about it, even more will come up. But I think one is, as we're doing some of those newer activities to many teams on the left-hand side, like getting out and doing interviews or focusing in on win-loss or meeting and talking about distinctive competencies, some of those activities, having I've heard some companies call it a Nihito meeting, maybe once a month, is an example of a forum where different individuals across different business units, different portfolio areas, segments can come together and share some of the interviews, some of the things that they're doing, so that collectively you might identify a pattern faster. I think that is one of the first things that I would want to get up and going. But I think it also reinforces training. It reinforces the understanding of the framework, the common terminology that what is a Nihito visit? Are we doing it the right way? I think there are some preparation things that might come out of getting people together. They might say, well, why don't we build one playbook of questions we could all use in all of our interviews, and things like that. So that's one area. Does that make sense?
It does. And on my next question, you want to read that, Eddie? Or
sure. Let me just get it for those who aren't benefiting from the video here. How does one change the culture of an organization to adopt more of the pragmatic framework tools and practices and to instill the philosophy? Which works best, commitment or compliance?
In other words, you could show something that is just the most amazing thing that you've ever discovered. You train, but that doesn't necessarily mean they'll use it. And that's so right. So leadership, I imagine, has to be involved. That's my guess. And so to get to, I guess one way to say it is, I'm an Agile coach, by the way. You have stages of Agile maturity that teams go through.
Yeah.
Is there stages of product management or pragmatic maturity that the organizations you support go through?
Yeah.
And in other words, and how do you get to the next stage, so to speak?
Yeah, there is. And I do think there are different levels of culture and maturity that we're getting to. And it's a journey. Having done this, I've worked in 9 companies and built teams in multiple places. I've done it the wrong way. I think I've worked my way through some of the things that worked. And I don't know if this will surprise you, but one of the things that I learned to do first and do really well was to take people from training and to work with them individually and as a team to set expectations on what good was like. What is success for a product manager? What is success for a product marketer, depending on the role that you're managing? and build their confidence and really just solidify their belief that putting in this extra effort, which is the way they always look at it. I'm spending, 120 hours already answering people's questions, and you want more time from me to spend on the market. You got to really deal with that, a little passive resistance maybe. And along with that, one of the things that helps is to show that you're creating time, you're creating space for them to get things done. You're paving the way a little bit. For example, maybe there's a little budget to go travel if we're able to do that. Maybe it is simply saying you don't have to be at every stand-up, go to 4 out of 5 and I'll back you up. Maybe there's other ways to do that. I had an individual, a product owner, who said to me that they were the subject matter expert on a product, managing 2 Scrum teams. And they were asked, because of their domain knowledge, to kind of figure out the roadmap for a brand new industry. And so when am I going to find time, was what he said to me. And he backed away from 2 stand-ups 5 days a week to 3 days a week and let the team find him on Slack if they needed to. And he found about 8 hours a week to do some of these other activities. How can, as a leader, you create an environment to help them do that? I think there's a companion of setting goals on how many visits, observations, conversations, interviews that each individual needs to do. And maybe it's not the same number, but something in the ballpark, or working towards 10 a quarter per product manager is where you want to get to. Because what happens over 2 or 3 quarters is the team gets to, standing more tall, standing more confidently. They've had 20, 30 visits. When somebody's asking them why, or pushing back on something that they're trying to present, there's more influence. There's more there and more confidence that the individuals have to explain that why. And that's when the snowball starts to really get going, I have found, after a couple of quarters. Individuals believe it's going to work. They see their peers. They feel supported within their team. And I think along the way, if you're having senior leadership shout out in public, town halls about how important the work that product management is doing is to the company, they hear and see that connection as well. But if we get individuals feeling really confident, then I think we can work on other process, introduce positioning as another step, introduce, the market-driven backlog that we talk about in our build class, and kind of plan out some of those more handoffs between teams. But those all go much more successfully if you have individuals that are really grounded in get the job and are coming in with more market experience. Long answer for you.
No, it helps. Thank you. Thank you.
Lots of good stuff. And I'm happy to kind of offline give you more details if you like, or, work it through a little more.
Well, now that I have your name, you're in trouble.
Take advantage of it, Walter.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
If I saw you trying to take notes there, Walter, I just want to remind everybody that the recording of this, you'll be able to find on the Pragmatic Institute YouTube channel very shortly. And so you can rewatch Cindy give you that fabulous answer as many times as you want to.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Walter. Next time we'll talk too.
All right. We've got another question in the chat from Scott. Scott's question requires a little setup, it looks like here. So I'm going to read the setup. And then Scott, feel free to unmute and ask any clarifying questions of Cindy after I read your question here. Scott says, working for a major platform provider where architecture team decouples all needs away from their associated personas, features, and use cases. They are striving to maintain an enterprise platform view. Even though development is agile-minded, but the architecture results is too much work in progress because they are driving to platform enablement and aren't driving towards feature fulfillment. Are you with me so far, Cindy?
I am.
Okay, here's the question. what are successful ways to move platform architecture back to user feature deliveries? Scott, feel free to unmute and ask anything I didn't get right in there.
Well done, Eddie. Unless you have a question, Cindy, go for it.
I might as we go along. And Walter, if you're an Agile coach, if you have an idea here, please jump in, right? I think my mind goes to a couple of things here, but this might surprise you a little bit, Scott, but I think that this is a tough ask without credibility and without role definition. And so maybe there's some things that you could clarify for me. So we have product management, we have product ownership. Do we have both of those roles, or technical product management?
We have all of those, yes.
Okay. And so we have different teams. I think if I back up, intuitively, they need to be connected. It's not okay to not be connected, right?
Correct.
Right. So, but we want to make sure that we're using our team's time and our resources and our budgets, even platform and architecture, to helping us get to our strategic goals. And so what I would do is I would take those different roles and I'd pull them together, and I'd just make sure to get them to understand what those strategic goals are. What's the definition of success? And you could do that as simply as saying, let's talk about the business case that we're trying to get to. If it's a short-term horizon of a year, if it's longer than that, something more than just a quarterly business review goal, right? But if you get those roles, understanding what success is, then what are the things that we're not doing that are making it harder for us to get there? By having market-driven and platform and architecture, beating to different drums, we're making it harder to get there. What is it that would bring us together? And we have a tool that I think is perhaps a place you could start by getting these roles with that success criteria in mind, building the strategy matrix. Are you familiar with that tool?
Which tool?
It's called the strategy matrix.
I hadn't seen it relate to this, but I'll have to look at it again.
Well, the reason I mention it is because it is designed as an alignment tool, specifically for situations like this. And when we're talking about existing products and new features, what the strategy matrix does is it allows us to also bring in technology, architecture, infrastructure as investments. It's this combination of thinking that we want this team to do together, which is maintaining a platform and also building in that platform things that the market really cares about, right? It's that feature versus maintenance versus platform and technology development. In this strategy matrix, you really are thinking about all of those things. And at the same time, what that tool allows you to think about is, what is success in the context of that? Who are we trying to pursue in the market, for example, which brings back that business kind of criteria. We teach teams how to do this in our focus class, but all of those tools that go around this process are part of the alumni community. With a kind of a common view of that, and I know that it doesn't happen overnight, but getting teams to buy into, this is a way we should be working, let's work through it, we do start to connect the kinds of investments we're making in technology more closely to what we're getting out of them in terms of user benefit, market benefit. I'll stop there and see if there are further questions around it.
I can give you my 2 cents.
Please, Walter.
That is just rewording a little bit of what you said already. From my experience, the struggle with platforms is because we all get teched out. We all get very much into the weeds. And we know what that is. We know these are awesome benefits. But my recommendation is to go do a brainstorming session, get a whiteboard, and what are the outcomes of that you want? Yes, we want this thing to be able to work. Look at the App Store. The App Store, they have multiple customers. Apple's a customer. the people who submit their applications are customers, and then the receiving person of the application is another customer. Well, what does that look like? You can go down into the technical weeds, which is cool, but go first is, well, what is the benefit to them? What is that, the business value? What do they get out of that? Go from outcomes, then work your way backwards. And then you will get into the technical aspects of it, and that's normal. But then when you're creating those technical requirements, tie that to the outcome. I mean, how do you slice that outcome so that that technical piece that you're trying to build for your platform ties to that?
I like that answer.
We'll have to send you a consultant fee today. Thank you.
Well, I'll be asking Cindy a lot more questions. So
No problem. So Scott, this is a big task. I've been there. I get it. I really do. And I think it can be quite uncomfortable. I think one of the, at an epic level, let me just use that terminology, right? At an epic level, we want to make sure that the technology teams see how the work that they're doing is connected to, as we're saying here with Walter and myself, the outcomes. However you do that, if you document a problem in the market that you're trying to solve, can you make a connection between those broader themes or epics to that problem, and educate everybody on what success is at that high level? If you can do that, then I think it helps people stay on track in their conversations as they go deeper into the tactical requirements and things like that.
Hope that helps, Scott.
Callie has put the strategy matrix up in chat for you guys to download.
Thank you, Callie, on the ball. Check it over there in the chat. The strategy matrix, both in PDF and Word form, for your strategy needs, all taken care of over there.
All right, Scott, please feel free to ask a follow-up if you want at any time now or later, okay?
Yes.
Hey, thank you.
I have, so Cindy, I've got two questions over here about product manager interviews. And I'll do them back to back here because they're kind of related. The first one comes from Thomas, who actually asked us a question earlier. Thomas says, what are the best resources to look for when doing PM interview prep? Say you're starting a new, or hope to start a new position as a PM, and you're prepping for that interview. What sorts of things might you consider?
Well, researching the companies that you would like to work for.
Same for any job, I would assume there.
Yeah. I'm thinking a new job too, right? So, I think it's important for us to work for things we're passionate about. If you also, like that and are kind of seeking that, then find companies or industries that are working in things that you care a lot about. I think that's always a good place to start. Sometimes we look at the individual openings and we don't look at the where those openings are. So I would take a step back if you haven't already, and I would do that. You have access to an incredible community that will support you and answer questions, specifically things they have gone through or give you advice. And that's the Pragmatic alumni community. Over 5,000 people registered in there. Whenever I go into the community, I'm seeing kind of a thriving set of threads and conversations there. Go in and start a thread and say, this is what I'm looking for. Right? You may not be looking specifically for openings and recommendations from the community, but you may get them, right? But what are kind of questions or resources specifically that other people who recently were looking for a role might advise you on? Absolutely tap into that. I think there are other communities that LinkedIn has other product groups. But one of the things you're going to want to be able to do is tout your experience with training and with Pragmatic. And so getting a really good lens from others who have done exactly what you've done and what's worked for them is, I think, a great place to start.
Yeah, you'll have tons of people in there who have hired PMs themselves, and you can ask them, what do you wish your candidates would have asked you? In fact, it's increasingly likely that the people you're interviewing with will be in the Pragmatic alumni community as well. That might be kind of fun. Find them in there; they'll be impressed.
I hope that helps.
Cindy, and then Mitch has a question that's kind of a twist on that same idea. Mitch says, I hear a lot of questions about interviewing for a PM job and what questions you should ask in an interview. But what about questions you should be asking before you accept a PM job? I'm new to the product world and I'm excited for the opportunity, but want to be sure it's the right fit and worth the shift.
I have some recommendations, of course.
By the way,
Yeah.
worth the shift.
If you're jumping into product management for the first time, I first of all, I love the fact that you're asking the question. You know, I applaud that. That's really great. There's something you probably intuitively know that you don't know, which is exactly right. There's a lot of change, organizational change in product companies. Product management teams evolve as companies and portfolios evolve. And what I mean by that is you might have a few individuals that kind of wear a lot of hats and do a lot of things. And as you grow and add more products and bring more people on, you start to divide those hats into pieces. And so I think as you interview, ask questions around why is this role being created? And I think what you can figure out how to ask the question, but what you're trying to get down to is this a new role? Well, why is the role created? What has driven that? And how is this role different to others? If it's not a new role, if it's a replacement, there's ways that you could kind of get to, well, why is this a replacement? Did the person leave, right? Has it changed in some way? And I think that's important to understand. If I was asked that question as a head of product, I would be thinking how clever and intuitive of the person. And by the way, that's a skill that we're looking for as you kind of show your stuff and your skill set. The fact that you can tune into who you're talking to, that you can, probe and ask, tough questions and listen for answers is a really great skill. And you're demonstrating that by asking something like this. And I think you have every right to kind of frame that question up there. Maybe practice with somebody before you actually ask that of somebody that's interviewing you. But get that kind of an understanding and feel comfortable with it. If you're new to product management, you're probably moving into a role that's probably growing. It's an entry-level role on the team. The second thing I would tell you is bring the Pragmatic framework with you. And I have a couple of times as I've interviewed people, pretty much hired people on the spot because they put out the Pragmatic framework and they started talking about their work history. And they said, I worked in this box and I did this over here. And they showed me their skill set in the context of the problem-oriented thinking, market-driven thinking that was very important to me. And I just loved that. Perhaps you could turn that around and use that as a way of asking them questions. Do you focus on win-loss? Do you focus on market problems? Which activities do the product team spend most of their time on? What are they not doing? And what is the plan to maybe do some of that? It will give you a real feel for how market-driven they are. And if it's a place and a culture that you feel like it's a good fit for you.
That's brilliant. And of course, if any of the boxes they kind of hedge around and you get the feeling that they're not implementing those, you can offer, hey, I have experience in this and this is the value that it brings to an organization and I can do that for you. Wow. Mm-hmm. Hire that person on the spot. Very cool.
You bet.
Cool. Cindy, we have time for probably one more question, and I believe Dolores has put another one in the chat for us here. Dolores would like to know, what is the main difference between product development and product management within an organization in general? Are they interchangeable? Titles, good old titles. That's a kind of a mess out there in the industry, isn't it, Cindy?
Yes.
Dolores, feel free to unmute and clarify anything there.
Yeah, so it's kind of stemming from So some of you may know the company that I work for just basically created product management. We've never had the department for, I would say, in the last 6 months.
Cool.
And so we're, getting our feet wet, jumping in. Happy to say that the people that I have been able to obtain with it from within the organization, we have sent them to Pragmatic as well, because I attended myself and highly, highly recommend it. So we are a company that has current products, right? And without having a product team before, like obviously we're trying to now encompass or incorporate some of the things we've learned, obviously, into kind of improving the products, right? Because without a product team, like it's crazy how we've even had products, how we've come this far without having a product team, right? Like we didn't know we needed one until we have one now, and it's crazy. So our focus has been on our current products, right? Like going back, creating roadmaps, the user personas, buyer personas, all of that, et cetera. But now the company wants to not only focus on improving current products, and we figured new products would come as we developed and talked to our people and figured out the problems that we need to solve, so that eventually even some of our current products would evolve into newer products or newer features or newer designs or whatever. That was always the thought. But now the company also wants to go outside of our current market and do new products. Is that so that to me, I think of like brand new product development, where we're kind of managing current products. Am I thinking of that correctly? Or is it one like interchangeable, or is that a brand new team for the new stuff and we maintain the old stuff? Like, do you feel me? Do you understand where I'm going?
I do. I am smiling because you are asking all the right questions. I think your intuition is exactly on the right stuff, which is, how can we be managing current products at the same time as we're thinking about new things?
Right.
In the mind of a product manager, it's a little tough, a little bit of an oxymoron even, right? Because it's details and maintenance and satisfaction for an existing product, and loads and loads of enhancement requests to work through.
Right.
Versus,
our backlog is humongous right now.
That's right. And you'll never, if you have one individual that you task with both things, you'll never get to the new. It just is the way it works. So what I do want to kind of caveat my answer here for you is that there is no one model that works in every company.
True.
This is something we craft for ourselves, and we have to kind of sit there and say, what strengths do we have? What domain experts, what process, what culture do we have? And what do we need to build on? What do we need to spend time on? And I think one of the best tools to give us a baseline is what we call the gap analysis. Are you aware of that tool?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Have you gone through that discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Now, have you clarified different roles focusing on different activities?
Yes. And it was, I guess, focused on or worked within our current products, like, current team and current products. So it wasn't, and we already had enough gaps just with current stuff, if that makes sense.
It does.
So, yeah.
It does. So is there a role that is working in the activities in the top left? Market problems, positioning, market definition, those activities?
No.
Okay. Then that's where you start. And it is saying that we have to make sure there's no activity left behind here. Let's make sure that we carve out a role that is focusing in on the left side of the framework, the top left. And those activities are starting with market problems, starting with things like win-loss, competitive analysis, just to name a few, are the ones that somebody thinking about a new segment or a new market would need to spend some time in to do that discovery research. And so that gives you a little bit of, it needs to be separate. It's a different set of activities, maybe if it's one individual, you carve out how many hours a week do we work on that group of activities versus how many hours a week we work on roadmaps and requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And you split the role a little bit.
Gotcha.
But it's better if it's a real strategic direction for the company, if you could have an individual focusing in on that piece.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for confirming it and saying it out loud and putting it in the universe.
I am very happy to. It is not a simple thing. It's a process we kind of evolve towards, right?
Yes. And we're definitely still evolving.
Good.
Good luck with that. But as Cindy said, it sure sounds like you're asking the right questions. And then that's the first step.
Awesome.
Well,
thank you very much.
Cindy, it is time to wrap up and to choose who of our Zoom audience today is going to get a free lunch. So completely at your discretion.
Sure.
Who asked your favorite question today? So
who do we have here with us?
Well, let's see. It looks like we lost Walter a few minutes ago. So you're limited then to those that are currently on the Zoom. Dolores and Scott both asked good questions today during.
Yeah, they did. You know, I wish I could give 2 lunches because I think we've asked really, really good questions. I want to give my nod over here to Scott.
Scott, it is. Scott,
are you still with us?
He's around.
I am. Thank you.
He's on mute. Scott, you've asked a question that I know I get a lot. I know as instructors we get a lot. It's a little bit of culture. It's kind of putting an organizational process in place from strategic and business and outcomes all the way through what our geniuses in architecture spend time on. And it is not an individual role as much as it is influencing different stakeholders across the organization. It's a tough one, but a really good one, right? And we're here to support you with additional questions if you need to. So you get my nod today.
Well, thank you, Cindy.
Brilliant, Scott. If you would, send me your email address in the chat. You can send it just to me personally in the chat if you prefer, but send me that so we can send you out your gift card and you get a free lunch. Who says there's no such thing? Thanks, Scott. All right. Just a couple quick items to wrap us up here. Join us for the next of our product chat series. That happens April 13th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will welcome companies Code and Product Led for a star-studded discussion surrounding how product professionals can become masters of their competitive landscape. And of course, if you can't wait to see us until then, join us right here again every Friday for the Pragmatic Institute Ask Me Anything sessions. Great resource. It has been wonderful. Cindy, thank you yet again for dumping your knowledge bucket into our empty brains. We love it.
You make it fun. Time flies. I don't know how it does, but it
and you
just
stayed
flies.
awake. Congratulations. You did not fall asleep. Everyone, thank you so much for being here.
Have a great one.
Weekend.
Yeah, happy weekend. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.